The Move Shoot Move Nomad Star-Tracker has gotten a lot of attention recently due to its improved design and excellent performance claims. This video is primarily focused on it and the modifications and accessories I employed to simplify its use. Frankly, I was curious but hesitant to buy one. Based on many credible reports, I felt confident the Nomad would work well for Widefield Milky Way photography, which I do enjoy. But what about higher focal lengths? How high is high? For instance, how would it perform with my Askar FMA135 lens? Could it handle the weight and torque from an elongated telescope-like shape? Would it work with a ZWO astro-dedicated camera with dangling cables and accessories? What kind of exposure times is it capable of supporting? What percentage of the subframes would be of acceptable quality for stacking? Those were some of my questions and the issues I wanted to test. Luckily, I had an astrophotography friend, Adam, that owned a Move Shoot Move Nomad, and he kindly let me borrow it. That is him and I here in this video footage, attempting some imaging and running a few tests late last month. Here is a quick view of the basic setup I was employing in the previous video. Compared to my AM5 and TC40 tripod-mounted telescopes, this setup appears narrow and tall and suspiciously unstable, which was obviously one of my concerns. On the right is the 135 Askar lens with a ZWO filter drawer and the ASI 585MC color camera that I used in this study. That optical tube assembly was secured to a 150mm Arca Swiss plate. Also, as you probably noticed, on the top was a Cinta Mini Vixen clamp designed to hold a small laser pointer. I will talk more about that later. Now, let's review this entire setup from the ground up. I have a number of possible tripods that I can use with this Star-Tracker configuration. Shown here is simply the lightest weight carbon fiber unit I own, which has a 15 kilogram payload. On one of the legs, I jury-rigged a Cinta Mini Vixen clamp to hold the ASI Air for control of the ZWO cameras that I usually employ for astrophotography. Moving up, next is a Alyn leveling base that has a 10 kilogram payload capacity. I was initially a bit concerned about the sturdiness of this particular design, but it really is fantastic, giving me a free range of motion to level and twist the mount, aligning it roughly with true north. When locked, it is extremely stable, and having a level mount is very important when using a star tracker. On top of that leveling base, you can see I dusted off my old William Optics latitude wedge that I was previously using with the Skywatcher AZ GTI mount, my first sidereal tracking device. I'm glad now that I held on to that latitude wedge. Unfortunately, however, the William Optics wedge is designed with a clamp that is only suitable for standard Vixen bars and not Arca Swiss plates, which is how the Move Shoot Move Nomad needs to be secured. But no matter, it was easy enough to jury-rig a Vixen to Arca Swiss adapter, as you see in the photo on the right. Of course, Move Shoot Move does sell a polar alignment latitude base with an Arca Swiss clamp for about $90, but it is smaller and lighter and nowhere near as solid as the tank-like William Optics wedge. So I decided to make use of my old wedge instead. I have noticed that there are now some other inexpensive all-metal, solidly built latitude bases sold on AliExpress that have clamps that accommodate both Vixen and Arca Swiss plates. They look like a fantastic deal for around $100. Next up the tower comes the Move Shoot Move Nomad Tracker. It has an Arca Swiss bar or plate built right into its housing. It can be attached directly to my adapter clamp. Above that is the Alyn Wallace Flex Tilt and Panhead V-mount, which I purchased from Move Shoot Move for $40 US. This accessory, I think, is a must-have for anyone using the Nomad or any similar star tracker in my opinion. If you only employ a ball head attached directly to the Nomad unit, it can be problematic for two reasons that are fully addressed by the V-mount. The V-mount helps in balancing the camera and providing a more complete range of motion, enabling access to all regions of the sky. The Z-mount design, an alternative accessory option, is a bit unnecessary for the Nomad if you want my personal opinion. By the way, I want to take a moment to remember Alyn Wallace for his contributions, particularly to night sky photography. I really enjoyed his YouTube channel, style, personal success at overcoming adversity, sense of adventure, youth, and beautiful photographs. You may know he passed away earlier this year in March. He is dearly missed, not just by me, but also by much of the astrophotography community worldwide. Rest in peace, Alyn, and thank you. Finally, on this Star-Tracker setup, next, on top of the Alyn Wallace V-mount, is required some kind of a sturdy Arca Swiss ball mount clamp to complete the assembly. Above that is where you put your camera and possible other accessories. Once again, here you can see my mini telescope OTA setup, which is topped off with a laser pointer to assist in manually finding objects in the sky. So star hopping is something you better know how to do if you plan to use any Star-Tracker unit, since finding objects is completely manual. And by the way, this laser pointer, which I bought on AliExpress, is ideal for this purpose, and because it is on a swiveling ball head, you can align it easily. Now keep in mind, high accuracy alignment is not necessary at these lower focal lengths. Oh, by the way, after finding the target, and just before capturing your images, I recommend to remove the laser pointer to minimize excess weight and the unnecessary additional torque on the tracking mount. So here is the setup. Now my first question was, of course, how much does all of this equipment weigh? Because the Nomad has a recommended weight limit of only 3.5 kilograms. I say only, but frankly it is rather surprising that some mechanical unit that compact could actually even handle 3.5 kilograms of weight, in my opinion. Well, here are the information of various component equipment pieces. Any mixing and matching of these parts results in total weights of 1.3 to 1.7 kilograms, which is far below the theoretical capacity of the Nomad tracker unit. When I first put together this entire assembly, however, I was skeptical. The reason was because I had issues with slippage at certain contact points between components, especially the contact between the Nomad and the Alyn Wallace V-mount. So I bought some rubber sheets at the local hardware store and crudely cut out a few fitted gaskets. I felt there simply was not enough friction between parts and thick rubber would help. In addition, I learned that it was crucial to use a large coin to hand tighten the attachment screws as much as possible. I suggest you don't use a construction tool since over-tightening might bend or damage or strip some part. But with a coin and your fingers, you can get just enough pressure to firmly secure these components for a good night of imaging. Another recommendation I want to make is to, where possible, spread your tripod legs out, widening the base, and keep everything short and close to the ground. Even with a small, narrow tripod, like that being used here, the stability provided is enhanced tremendously. On August 25th, I tested all of this equipment at Kawawa-Fuji Park near to my home during a night illuminated with a 61% waning gibbous moon. My ultimate imaging target was the Andromeda galaxy, which was about 39 degrees away from this bright moon. That is kind of close, so I decided to use the Antlia quad-band filter for imaging since it is very effective at blocking moonlight and allows some infrared to pass, providing for faster data capture. Here is the setup already aligned on Andromeda. You can see I used the low-profile spread tripod legs for added stability, mostly because it was a bit windy this night as well. First of all, do you see the protruding column on the right side of the Move Shoot Move? That is the laser alignment device for polar alignment. The Nomad unit that I borrowed only had the laser alignment accessories. This borrowed Nomad did not come with a polar scope option, which of course is more accurate for polar alignment. So on this night, I simply aligned the tracker by pointing the laser at Polaris. Of course, you can take that laser off when you are finished polar aligning, but I elected to leave it there so I could check the polar alignment again later after I finished the imaging run. Remember, one of my concerns mentioned previously was the narrow and tall and suspiciously unstable looking setup. But what I found was that the alignment stayed very close to the original point and only deviated very slightly. I was quite surprised. That suggests that the leveling base in the William Optics wedge and tripod did a fantastic job holding the polar alignment position very securely. Here is a 60-second single-frame exposure of the North American Nebula, NGC 7000. This was the first target I slewed to, simply because it was easy to find, being located very close to the star Deneb. I think the North American shape is fairly obvious in this image. Certainly you can easily see the bright region, sometimes referred to as the Cygnus Wall. Here I boxed that area in red, and in the next slide we will magnify this area to take a close look at the shape of the stars. This is that zoomed image. You can see here that the stars actually appear quite round. There is no evidence of star trailing on this target at 60 seconds exposure time at 135mm focal length. That's pretty impressive for this tiny little star tracker, don't you think? So, I next proceeded to manually locate Andromeda to do some real deep sky imaging. For some targets like Andromeda, finding it can be difficult if there are no nearby bright stars. In general, under Bortle-class 7+ skies here in Yokohama, there are relatively few easily visible guide stars. So to assist in seeing stars and star hopping to find deep sky targets, I bought a set of Widefield 3x magnification Constellation binoculars on AliExpress. This unit looked like an inexpensive, decent set to try out. The claims were that the optics provided a night sky immersive experience with a 17-degree field of view. Actually, they were not bad, but it was far from an immersive experience and less than 17 degrees. And from the edges, extending about 30% inward, there appeared to be some image distortion that was evident during daytime viewing, but less evident at night. It was kind of like using a very average eyepiece focused in the middle, but less so at the edges. Don't get me wrong, the binoculars were pretty cool. They brightened and enabled the visualization of many stars that I could not see with my naked eye. I liked them. In fact, I liked the concept so much, I wanted something better. I noticed a few makers had bigger apertures and a lower 2x magnification. That seemed like it would be more immersive. So I bought a pair of these Sky Rover Constellation binoculars. Now on AliExpress, I have previously noticed a lot of good-looking Sky Rover astronomy products, but I have never ever purchased any. And I know of no one, outside of China maybe, that has any of their products. But out of curiosity, I took a chance on the Sky Rover brand, and was not disappointed. The materials and construction quality are top shelf, and the optics are very good. These binoculars claimed a 36-degree field of view, but I found it was more like 25 to 30 degrees, depending on how close you hold them to your eyeball. But even at a comfortable distance from my eyes, they really do provide an edge-to-edge immersive viewing experience. The stars looked great, and the edge distortion with Sky Rover was significantly less than the ones I bought previously. The constellation of Cassiopeia occupies about 60% of the field of view, and all of Orion just barely fits in. The product price is shown here, and I purchased them through one of my favorite suppliers on AliExpress, a store called StarPal. They are a very reliable establishment. The product even came with an inspection certificate and warranty card. So based on this overall experience, I now feel confident to say that SkyRover seems to be a brand associated with good quality astronomical equipment. They made a good first impression on me. Now back to finding Andromeda. Using my SkyRover binoculars, I could see this amount of sky in the Andromeda constellation, but I could not see any of Andromeda itself. Under these light-polluted skies, even the core was not visible, even with the binoculars. But there were two reasonably bright stars in this area of the sky. They are Alpheratz and Merak. All of the other dimmer stars, especially the two circled in red, were not visible to the naked eye, but visible with the Widefield binoculars. And on the sky map, it was clear that M31 was equidistant from this one star almost directly on the opposite side from Merak. So, using the aligned green laser on the OTA setup, I manually pointed it at precisely this region of sky on the other side of that dim star. It took several tries to get it exactly positioned, but each time I checked with the SkyRover binoculars until the laser beam was exactly where I wanted it. Then I took a photograph, and lo and behold, both the green laser and Andromeda were both in the field of view. This is obviously a simulation of what I saw, but the main point is that the Constellation binoculars enabled me to identify dim stars that greatly assisted in the alignment of the laser and hence my optical tube assembly on the desired target. Here is a 20-second ASI Air screenshot from my Samsung tablet. The stars were round with no trailing and about the right brightness at 20 seconds exposure time. Since I was using the Antlia quad-band filter, which picks up a lot of infrared, I limited my exposures to only 20 seconds to avoid bloating up the stars. I captured 100 subframes and only discarded 10 to generate this 30-minute integrated image of the Andromeda galaxy. I know it's not the best image, but given the wind and the nearby moon and the 31 degrees centigrade sensor temperature, it came out fairly nice and proved to me that the Nomad Star-Tracker was capable of supporting deep-sky astrophotography at 135mm focal length with no star trailing at 20 seconds on Andromeda and up to 1 minute on the North American Nebula. And also, considering this was a crude laser alignment to Polaris, and hence not very accurate, unless somehow I got lucky, I think overall, this is mighty impressive. Finally, I thought it might be useful to compare the highly portable Nomad Star-Tracker setup versus the Seestar S50 unit from ZWO. In a few of my previous videos, I used the Seestar on some astrophotography travel adventures. That was also borrowed equipment, not something I owned. And although I think the Seestar is awesome technology, I do not feel motivated or excited to buy one for myself. Frankly, I feel more excited about the Move Shoot Move Nomad Star-Tracker and actually have already ordered a unit for my very own. Let me tell you about my logic. But the explanation I will give you is personalized. It is my thinking and my feelings as a reasonably experienced astrophotographer who owns several telescopes, cameras, and lenses already in my collection. Here we go. Both the Nomad and Seestar offer portability, although the Seestar is a one-piece, fully functional design. The Seestar has an integrated CMOS sensor and fixed focal length of 250mm. That cannot be changed. But already, I have several ZWO cameras and lenses and small astrographs from 14mm up to 135mm. So the Nomad gives me options and flexibility around framing an object with the right magnification and right orientation. In this respect, the Seestar is totally inflexible. The Seestar is an alt-azimuth tracking unit with a pre-programmed maximum exposure time of only 10 seconds to minimize field rotation artifacts. But with the Move Shoot Move Nomad, I can do equatorial tracking and much longer exposure times if I want to. including at least 60 seconds even at 135mm focal length, and EQ tracking eliminates field rotation artifacts. I can also conveniently utilize all of my existing astrophotography filters. The Seestar has a limited number of filters internally, none of which are truly narrowband filters. Although I hear it is now possible to use externally mounted filters with 3D printed adapters, if you like. The Seestar is fully automated with go-to target finding capabilities, which is nice to have, but it is so fully automated in all other aspects as well. There literally is nothing to do other than programming the application on your smart device. You put the smart telescope on the ground and press go. If I was a beginner in this hobby, I would probably appreciate all of the Seestar automation. However, personally, I enjoy the hands-on fun associated with more traditional EQ mount or Star-Tracker units. It gives me a feeling of contribution and accomplishment related to the final image. Again, this is a personal feeling. Overall, the Seestar is definitely cheaper compared to buying the Move Shoot Move Nomad Star-Tracker and all the scopes and cameras and filters and accessories that are needed. However, I already have most of those accessories, so it actually ends up being less expensive for me. There is no right or wrong recommendation here. It all depends on your personal situation, experience, what interests you. Are you hunting deep sky objects, or do you like Milky Way panoramas, or both? Hopefully this video gave you some insights and tips on using the Move Shoot Move Nomad Star-Tracker. To make this video, I borrowed a Nomad unit and used it only a handful of times. And as you can see, there is a learning curve and many issues that I needed to consider and address. But overall, I convinced myself that the Nomad is a good device that can provide flexibility, high performance, and complement my portfolio of astrophotography equipment in interesting and enjoyable ways. So I ordered a Nomad unit with the polar scope option and laser, and I look forward to receiving it soon. I am sure to use it on some interesting travel adventures to darker skies around Japan in the coming months. This has been Astrophotography Japan. Here in Yokohama, I am JP Astro Guy. My name is Paul Cheesegel, and thank you for watching.